welcome to your Wealth, a show that looks at all things money markets and investments. I'm your host, Kudzafio Muchenjikwa, and today we're right here at the Celebration Center where we're having the post-midterm budget review breakfast meeting, and we'll be looking at the issues that were raised in the midterm budget review by the Finance Minister, Mutuli Ncube, and some of these issues are to do with the issue of compliance. You know, the business sector has been grappling with over 30 licenses that they have to pay in order for them, to function in their sectors. And these are some of the issues that they'll be talking about, and also the issue to do with taxes. And this has been one of the major issues that businesses also been asking about, if they're going to be reviewed, if they're going to be looked into. Now today, this is the show that you need to look at, because we're going to be getting insights on what is being done, what will be done, and today you'll get all your answers.
The midterm budget review was really a non-entity because the minister didn't change anything. He didn't even amend the annual totals. I just make a couple of comments on the budget itself. First, I think that the agricultural estimates are overstated. If you speak to the guys in the grain industry, we've already exhausted grain supplies locally. We're already starting to import major imports from our neighbours. And I know we achieved a record tobacco crop and record returns on tobacco. And also we've achieved self-sufficiency more or less in wheat. But the rest of the industry is still very, very severely depressed. The mining results, I think, are excellent, and the mining industry continues to be the main driver of this economy. Tourism, I'm puzzled by the fact that our tourism is not recovering as fast as it should do, and I think this needs really close examination. Manufacturing is a disaster. Manufacturing is the place where we grow our jobs. Manufacturing needs to be put back on its feet on a big way. There was a time, Minister, when you had liberalized the market and we were creating 10,000 jobs a month, largely in the manufacturing sector. We're now going backwards. We're losing jobs in the manufacturing sector. We need to find out why, and we need to correct that. You can't grow this economy without power. It's the bloodstream of the nation. And the fact that we are load shedding sometimes after 16 hours a day, speak to any industrialist, speak to any miner. You've got 600 men underground and the lights go out. You start a diesel generator, and at 35 cents a kilowatt, you bring your men to the top and you stop your operations. And that's across the board. We have over 600 formal sector gold mines. I believe we could increase production in our gold sector. And in the private sector, we've initiated a program where we are sponsoring 35 new generation facilities. But the ZESA remains a problem, because the ZESA tariffs are the highest in the region. And ZESA has to have these high tariffs in order to service its debt liabilities. And if ZESA can't support its debt liabilities, it's not going to survive. So we have to support ZESA. It's almost like a tax on the rest of the economy. But we have to do that, because if ZESA doesn't continue to operate, the whole industry will collapse and it will not be able to deliver power to our clients.
As business, I think we agree exchange rate is one of the worst managed prices in the economy. Because even when you introduce a budget, the major factor, I want to read the budget using, every time you try to look at ZIG numbers, sometimes they confuse me. They don't confuse me not because I can't read ZIG, but it's trust. Will the 2 zeros be the same tomorrow? Certainty. So we, as Chamber of Commerce, private sector, we quite very concerned in the whole exchange rate determination system or process. If Central Bank was here, they would have agreed that we don't agree to the whole deliberation on the exchange rate determination using, when you listen to them, they talk about reserves. I'm yet to be taught how reserves determine an exchange rate. It's strange. Maybe we'll learn. You learn every day. The tax aid, IMT Minister, Chamber of Commerce, we never agreed to it, and we continue pushing for its removal. We believe it's a toxic tax. it has served its purpose if ever. We know how sweet revenue can be when you pick it from any source. But IMT, even when we talk to financial sector, I'm not sure about their views on that, but IMT is a negative. The tax on interest income for banks, we certainly believe you have to tax gross interest income, not the net interest income. It's business of banks to make money through interest income. And if you can review that, Section 4A of the Finance Act, and if you look at 8.4 of the VAT Act, you agree we are talking about paying in the currency of trade. If you sell in US dollar, pay your tax in the currency of your trade. We believe it's a signal to say we don't have faith in our currency. Why are you not pushing just to say, look, if the exchange rate is correct? No, yeah, I can see PS is shaking his head to say no on this. But look, what is the wisdom of arguing that if you trade in US dollar, pay your tax in US dollar? If the exchange rate is correct, if it's not mispriced, and you agree that it's not mispriced, surely it should not be an issue. So we push for the repeal of those provisions. We believe, even if you look at I think we looked at the Zimbra versus Delta case, it's quite a sad reading on how they are losing ground also in having to pay their tax on that. And as I conclude, key enablers, like my colleagues had said, power, it is an issue. On average, 25% of the day, the machines are relying on alternative sources of energy because there's no electricity. If it is there, it's also very pricey. If you look at the price of electricity as we speak, 14, 15 cents per kilowatt hour, it's quite very costly.
Let me go straight to raising my pain points, and I mean no offense, Honorable Minister. My first issue is thank you for the midterm fiscal policy review, which in my view was neither what nor cold. I think it was a statement that simply rubber stamps the status quo. My first issue is on creating aggregate demand. I think the budget is so poor. If I look particularly on two tax aids, one, the payee tax-free threshold, which you maintained at 2,800 ZiG or $100 in terms of the USD equivalence. For me, we are simply taxing the poor, and they are taking dollars out of the pockets of the ordinary person, and that dense aggregate demand. My persuasion, Honorable Minister, is to review that so that you put more money in the hands of, in the pockets of the people. That's number one. Number two, Honorable Minister, still on the IMTT tax. When you came into office, if my memory serves me well, this was meant to be, one, a temporary tax. Secondly, it was meant to capture the informal sector into the tax bracket. If we look at how our economy is evolving, it is becoming predominantly informalized, and the informal sector is predominantly operating on cash basis, meaning to say, by their nature, they've been also elusive in this particular tax bracket. My view, since this is a tax per transaction, is arguably the most pervasive tax that we have ever seen in this country. My persuasion is maybe, if you cannot afford to remove it in its totality, perhaps consider reducing the percentages so that it does not become really a hit on the expenditure power of the people. My third pain point, Honorable Minister, is quality of the stability that dear colleagues talked about. My view is this is a pseudo-stability. I see a scenario where the government, through the RBZ, is drip feeding ZiG into the local market. I think there's a headline in the Financial Gazette of today talking about miners not being paid their surrender component. Their surrender component. So I believe if that was not the case, perhaps we could have a scenario. I think we have also a case, Honorable Minister, of many suppliers to government that have not been paid, some dating back to as far as August last year. So my question now is, we might be balancing the books, but what is the quality associated with that balancing of the books? Perhaps you can school me later on that, Honorable Minister, but this is a true sentiment that is coming from the industry.
Well, there you have it. This was our first segment of Your World. And today we're right here at the Celebration Center where we're having a post-midterm budget review. And of course, we're having stakeholders who are sharing their opinions on what the minister shared last week. And we'll be back shortly with the second segment. Welcome back to the second segment of Your World. I'm Kudzafim Chinchukwa. We are here at the Celebration Center, and today we're having a number of stakeholders who are coming through to give their views on what the minister presented on the midterm budget. And now let's take a look at what other stakeholders had to say.
I think one thing is clear, is that this economy is actually bigger than we've always thought. I know that Eddie Cross usually comes to my office and says, Minister, I remember 1 year, I think it was 2021, he said to me, Minister, that rate of growth of 8.5%, which I was very happy with, we're all very happy, it's much higher than that. We think it's more like 12, 13%. We look at all the cars on the road, where are all these people going? Fuel prices are rising, but they're still traveling. We've actually got even more cars. So perhaps the economy is a lot bigger. And this is what the rebasing exercise has actually shown. When we did that rebasing, for which kicks in 2023, 2024, we're finding that the economy is of the order of 48 billion, in fact, as of this year, end of this year, in size, with a GDP and GNI per capita above $3,000 US dollars per capita per person. Let me start with the issue of expenditure that I think when Eddie Cross raised the issue of the wage bill being 55% of total, that this is high. We also agree that it is high.
It's 56.4%.
You see, even more precise, 56.4. So it's even 1.4% higher than what we see. So clearly this is of concern to us as Treasury, and we're making every effort to manage this. But also we have to manage the pressure from our own civil servants. As you can imagine, they work very hard and they want to be rewarded. So they put pressure on us as Treasury, as government, to keep improving their working conditions. This will push up the wage bill, and therefore we get to these kind of numbers. But look, I think we must also admit, Eddie, that things have improved. It used to be 80%. We've come a long way, but really we don't want to be going to the levels of 55%. In fact, in our target list, it should be maximum 50%, no more than 50%. The panelists also raised an issue on infrastructure spending. Again, this has improved. If you go back in history, 7 years ago, our PSIP spending was negligible, even non-existent. And even at just 3%, now we've made major progress, and largely due to the road infrastructure program, dam construction infrastructure program in power, and so forth. So I think we've made some progress. But again, I agree with the panelists that we need to do something about our national railways, that this is a key enabler for logistics, reducing the cost of doing business, improving profitability of companies, and even profitability of government. Sometimes I have to treat my taxes as profits. No, not really, you know. So I fully agree with this. Without revealing the things that are in the fire, there are a few transactions or considerations that are on the table right now. I feel like there are three that I'm aware of, all trying to sort out NRZ, both the fixed rail, the rolling stock, the railway signals, as well as the workshops in Bulawayo. If you look at the Botswana, our neighbors, Botswana and Mozambique, they've made tremendous progress in sorting out their railway gauge. We are behind. We just need to catch up with our neighbors. So this is an issue that we as Treasury have been pushing hard on, I can assure you. And we're working with Mutapa, because NRZ is now under Mutapa to finalize the various arrangements for the revamping the national railways of Zimbabwe. I also want to turn to the issue of energy. It's one of the, besides rail, energy is an enabler. And here, really what's being highlighted is the cost of energy at 16 cents per kilowatt hour. While it makes ZESA more viable, so it is able to service its debt, its obligations, the cost to business is quite high, and this we recognize. But again, this is also an opportunity in the sense that once you set the tariff at this level, then this is an economic tariff for the IPPs, the independent power producers. So I still want to know from private players why the uptake has been this slow, just in terms of investment by the IPPs. Because we thought that we had a credible government implementation agreement in place in the form of, first of all, a high economic tariff, 16 cents, and then most of you in the solar sector, you are profitable at 9 cents per kilowatt hour. We're offering 16 cents per kilowatt hour. And then we also are providing a guarantee to on the power purchase agreements that you sign with ZESA or ZTTDC. And also the central bank does issue letters to investors guaranteeing them access to foreign currency to service their loans, pay dividends, and repatriate profits. So we think that the three pillars to support IPPs, especially renewable energy, are in place, but the uptake has been slow. Maybe it's things like such as access to land, because you need to be able to access land typically within 30 kilometers of the mainland, so that you can then evacuate the power. Maybe that's one of the issues. I don't know. Maybe it's about that transmission infrastructure, access to the land. But let me remind you, some of you are farmers. These days you can be rearing your boar goats with solar panels. You know, that's you can have that kind of cohabitation. Maybe those who are interested in solar energy, we should look at that kind of cohabitation, crops as well as solar panels. And colleagues, let me say that as Minister of Finance, I also have to worry about other things. You are worried about your VAT on this, the exchange rate on that. Ordinary people want me to say something about social protection. So they are not in the room. So in this budget, we try to say, look, we'll maintain the social protection budget, BEAM, the basic education program, to support the vulnerable families, the elderly, so they can access medicines, the Fumvudza Intwasa program. All these social protection programs are necessary, and in the budget, we try hard to protect these. The health sector, again, colleagues, help us figure this out. Medicines are available at Avenues Clinic and Trauma Center in Borodor. What I'm saying is all there's equipment as well. So the private sector in the health sector has equipment, has drugs, has everything. And then we come to the public sector, we have some of these challenges. How can we create a public-private partnership between public hospitals and private hospitals to ensure that our ordinary citizens can also access higher quality medical services? Some countries do the following, and I'm just going to say it. They require doctors in private practice to treat a minimum number of low-income patients per month. This is by law. I'm not saying we should go that route. I'm just saying, So I'm just throwing it out there. That sometimes when we have a discussion about the health sector, it's as if the entire health sector in Zimbabwe has collapsed. That's not true. Because you go to Avenues Clinic, you get a different story. But not everybody can access Avenues Clinic. You understand my point? So please help us to come up with this PPP arrangement where ordinary citizens can also access high quality services. But we're making progress. Paranyota is being renovated. Salamugabe Hospital is being renovated. We've been, buying equipment, spreading right across the country. I was at Mpilo this last weekend. I saw progress, a lot of progress. These hospitals are cities. Have you ever toured Parengato Hospital or Mpilo? It's a city. It's a city, a very complex facility which requires quality and experienced management. So again, we're working with the ministry to make sure that we improve the quality of management in our health infrastructure.
Now that does it for our second segment of Your Wealth. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to the final segment of Your Wealth, and today we are right here at the Celebration Center where we're having the post-midterm budget review breakfast hosted by the Financial Gazette. Now, as 3K TV, we're just moving around getting the views of the stakeholders on what they thought should have been included or was left, in the budget. And we had some of these stakeholders talking to us now, so do stand by as we get into it to get what they had to say. Well, we're still here at the Celebration Center, and right now I'm joined by Sifiso Mahlangu, the MD for NBS Bank, and we're just going to be asking him things in regards with the infrastructure, how the midterm budget managed to capture some of the issues to do with the infrastructure. How are you, sir?
Thanks.
Awesome. Let me get straight into my first question. Now, the midterm budget mentioned infrastructure development. How does NBS see this impacting housing delivery and mortgage finance?
Thank you very much. How it will impact housing of delivery of housing is for the simple reason that it's going to lower the cost of logistics in terms of moving bricks to site and such other related things. The net effect of that is actually going to bring down the cost of production, and with it is actually going to increase the rate at which people actually qualify for mortgages. So remember, the issue around mortgage qualification is normally guided by the amount of the mortgage. And the amount of the mortgage is also dependent on the amount on somebody's salary. So I think, in as far as the current program is concerned, you actually find that it is actually going to make the logistics of addressing the input or the delivery of the things that are wanted for construction to the ground much more cheaper, and with that bring down the cost of doing business, bring down the cost of providing housing infrastructure, and with that a greater level of people that will be able to qualify for mortgages.
Well, thank you very much, for putting that into light, and I believe you'll be getting more, of these clients coming to you, since now, things have been made quite easy for you. Well, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Or that was the MD for NBS, Sifiso Mahlangu, just putting it out there what the midterm budget, has on the issue of infrastructure. Right now, we're joined by the CEO for Cyphos, and we're just going to be asking him some of the questions regarding to infrastructure. Now, sir, I just want to find out, what are some of the key infrastructure projects that Cyphos is currently embarking on?
I would want just to say all the projects which are in the country, our members are the ones who are actually implementing those projects, and so we are on it, and we are ready to make sure things are done according to our professionalism which we have in the industry.
Now, I just want to find out, in regards to the midterm budget that was presented by the Finance Minister, what are some of the key takeaways that you managed to get in regards with the connection to your sector?
Thank you. Yes, we have got a lot of things which we were expecting to see, but at the end of the day, when the Minister said the budget which was actually approved at the beginning of the year is performing very well, and our major problem with all what we are actually hearing is the issue of payments to the contractors. When contractors are not paid in time, it impacts to the business of each and every contractor who is actually doing work for the government. because they've got their own obligations which they need also to pay. And when they are not paid, they are in trouble. They will actually get their assets sold to make sure they pay up those obligations which they have. And government is actually saying currently they have overdone their projects, and this is why we are not actually getting our money. They budgeted for a certain amount, and we have been given projects which are over that budget, and automatically it will actually bring us to where we are, by virtue that the money is not enough for everyone who is actually doing the work in the country.
Now, speaking of that, what is Cyprus doing in order to make sure that these contractors are paid in time and that, you know, they're rewarded for their work?
Yes, we keep on engaging the ministry and all the procurement entities to make sure we come to an agreement of how best we can actually get paid in time and so forth. And even also we are proposing to government to say if there is any other way they can actually pay us without using the money. We can still say if there is land in the country which they can also pay us with, it will be okay. Even if they issue us with treasury bills where we have got something in our hands which we can use even to borrow money from the banks to continue to run our businesses.
Well, thank you very much, sir, for coming through and you know, shedding more light on what your organization is doing.
Thank you, Kutsi.
Now, there you have it. We've heard the stakeholders talking, giving us what they thought, you know, should have been added in the budget, and also their reactions to the midterm budget review by the Finance Minister, Professor Mthuli Ncube. Now, of course, one of the key topical issues was the issue to do with taxes. We understand that no taxes were introduced, which for some was a good thing. Of course, some were anticipating that taxes were going to be, more taxes rather, were going to be introduced, but none of this was done. So, of course, these are some of the reactions that you've heard the stakeholders giving us. And, you know, as 3K TV, we are here to give you all of that. My name is Kudzafi Muchenjwa. Thank you so much for joining us right here on Your World, a show that looks at all things money markets and investments. See you next time.